With us now is Mike Howell. He's from the Heritage Foundation, also a former oversight counsel at the Department of Homeland Security, the agency that really is in charge of this rollback, this proposed rollback from the Trump administration. Mike, thanks for being here. I appreciate your perspective on this. You know, the president, as a critic of DACA, has painted it as an amnesty-first approach to immigration, and he's always criticized the way that it was done as well, via executive action. I wonder what the precedent for immigration law by executive power is, and if this was a lightning rod from the beginning.
Right. Well, the Constitution vests that power in the Congress. Of course, through the INA, they delegate a lot of that authority right back to the executive branch. But one area they do not delegate is the ability to grant, wide swaths of relief and de facto, citizenship and allowance to be in this country. There's still immigration laws on the book that need to be enforced. These DACA recipients are illegal aliens who have just been granted temporary relief, and the president has complete authority to reverse that prosecutorial distraction and get back to a rule of law-based immigration system.
Let's talk about the argument here, the decision before the justices, this about how the president wants to try to roll back DACA. What are the legal implications of the justices' decision-making here either way? What message would it send?
Right, and this is where we get into really murky, troublesome water. The Supreme Court really doesn't have a role in this dispute. Basically, the argument that's being advanced by the plaintiffs is that they disagree just with the policy of the Trump administration. It's not a legally based argument. Sure, there is a legal argument, but it's nothing more than a pretense. It's basically saying, oh, the way you went about reversing this program, wasn't good enough, didn't fall and check all of your boxes here and there, which is just a pretense to get into court and hope that you can pressure enough left-leaning judges that your policy is better and let them play president for a day and side with you.
Well, I was going to say, even if the justices decide that the president can't roll back DACA the way he wants to, this fight for DACA recipients is probably not over, because they're going to be having this sort of more direct dialogue that you're alluding to here about whether or not the protection they were given in the first place was just when they were brought across the border illegally as children. What lies ahead for these folks in their legal battle to keep the protection that they were granted in the Obama years?
Right. So the protections they were granted in the Obama years are just temporary. They're, 2-year renewals that they have to go back and renew. So there's no long-term protections that were ever granted by the Obama administration. People know that this was always temporary in nature. So when those protections ultimately run out, then they're going to have to enter into the same immigration system that all illegal aliens enter into. Now, we know that most people who, get in the country end up staying, whether legal, illegal, or not. We just don't do much in the way of interior removal. So they, just like every other illegal alien in this country, will have to go through the process, and where ICE will then determine, who's the priority for removal, and, ultimately some of them may end up being removed.
What do you think this sets as far as a precedent for how the country as a whole treats migrants into the U.S.? We heard a lot of lawmakers at the Capitol today saying this is an opportunity for the Supreme Court justices to send a message about how this country regards migrants. Do you see it the same way, that it has the potential to set a precedent there?
Sure. I think no country in the history of the earth has treated immigrants better than the United States. I think it's high time we start treating our own citizens, well. And this will get us back to a rule of law, prioritize American citizens in this country who, have rights to and get to choose who gets to come into their country and how our immigration laws are administered. So these executive workarounds, the Supreme Court potential Hail Mary to save the program, are the way we should run this system. And I'm a little more concerned with how U.S. citizens are being treated by their own government than illegal aliens.
All right, well, we will see how the justices decide about the process here, the executive power that applies here, and then, of course, we may have a more substantive debate ahead about the actual substance of DACA protections. Mike Howell with us from the Heritage Foundation. Mike, thanks very much for sharing your perspective and insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.